Imagine a record not of gold, but of sound etched by radiation, whispers of plasma, and waves that no human ear has ever heard. What would it be like if Voyager didn't just explore space but played its song? Chapter 1. The silence between stars. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine floating beyond the edge of our solar system. No planets, no moons, just a black ocean that stretches in every direction. You're not falling, you're not rising, you're just drifting. But in this vast nothingness, a small machine continues its silent voyage. Launched in 1977, Voyager 1 and its twin, Voyager 2, were never supposed to last this long. And yet, decades later, they are still moving silently into the unknown. They've crossed the boundaries of our solar system and entered interstellar space, becoming the farthest human-made objects ever launched. But they don't send back photographs anymore. What they send is even stranger. Waves, radiation, particles, data from the deep. And this data tells a story. Not one we can see, but maybe one we can hear. We often think of space as silent, and that's true, at least for our ears. Sound needs air, or some medium, to travel. In space, there is no air, so no sound, no echoes, no voice. But silence in space is not the same as emptiness. It's just something we can't hear it, because the universe still moves. Energy still flows. Magnetic fields still twist and bend, and every movement, every fluctuation carries a rhythm, a kind of hidden music. So what if we could take those invisible patterns and turn them into something we can hear? That's where Voyager comes in. You see, even though it can't record sound in the traditional way, Voyager is constantly measuring. It measures changes in magnetic fields. It listens for plasma waves. It detects the charged particles flying through space. These are not sounds, not in the way we understand them, but they are vibrations, oscillations, frequencies. In other words, they can be translated. This process is called sonification. It's the art and science of turning data into sound. Scientists have used sonification to create audio from black holes, solar flares, even brain scans. When you hear those eerie tones from deep space online, those rising hums and sudden bursts of static, what you're hearing is data, translated into audio our ears can understand. And Voyager's data, it's some of the most mysterious of all. But before we dive into what Voyager's music sounds like, we have to ask a deeper question. Why does this matter? Why should we care about sound in a place where no sound exists? The answer is simple and surprisingly human. Because even in the deepest silence, we long for connection. Voyager wasn't just a spacecraft, it was a message. Literally. On board both Voyager 1 and 2 is the Golden Recorder collection of images, music, and greetings from Earth, encoded on a golden disc, meant for any intelligent life that might find it. It contains Bach, Beethoven, birdsong, laughter, and greetings in 55 languages. It was our way of saying, we were here. But what if space has been singing back this whole time? Not in music notes or melodies, but in fields and waves, frequencies and pulses. Maybe the void isn't as silent as we thought. Maybe it just speaks a different language. Voyager's instruments, like the plasma wave subsystem, don't record sound. They measure electric fields at different frequencies. These readings are then converted into audio by speeding them up or shifting their pitch. The result, long, droning hums, sudden whoop, strange chirps that rise and fall like whispers from another dimension. When Voyager crossed the heliopause, the boundary where the sun's influence ends and interstellar space begins, it detected a high-pitched plasma wave that lasted over a minute. To us, it sounds like wind howling through a long metal tunnel. It was the first direct evidence that Voyager had left our cosmic neighborhood. That sound wasn't made for us, but now we can hear it. And in hearing it, we feel something. Not understanding, maybe, not comfort, but something like awe. Because when we translate the data of space into sound, we're not just learning about the cosmos, we're feeling it. Space becomes not just a place but a presence. Of course, this isn't music in the traditional sense. There's no composer, no rhythm, no melody, but there is something raw, something primal, something that reminds us how small we are and how far we've come. Think about it, a machine built by humans, smaller than a car, powered by less energy than a refrigerator, has traveled billions of miles and is now sending back the vibrations of the stars. And somehow, through the right filters, we can listen to it on a phone. It's a humbling thought. We are creatures born in noise of cities, voices, storms, laughter, and yet the most profound sound we may ever hear is one that never reaches us on its own. Voyager didn't set out to make music, but in its silence, it brought back the possibility of something more, a new kind of listening, a new kind of wonder, and maybe, just maybe, a new way to understand the universe, not through sight or calculation, but through feeling, through resonance, through sound, through the silence between stars. Chapter 2. Voyager's Instruments. Reading the invisible. When we think of sound, we think of our ears, but when Voyager listens, it doesn't use ears. It uses instruments designed not to hear, but to feel, to sense, to measure the invisible tremors of space. So how exactly does Voyager record anything in the void? Let's start with what it carries. Both Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are equipped with a set of scientific tools built for deep space exploration. Some of them are cameras which captured those now iconic images of Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. But as Voyager moved beyond the planets and into the space between stars, other instruments took center stage, ones that don't take pictures, but capture something more subtle, invisible forces. Among them is the Plasma Wave Subsystem, or PWS. It is perhaps the most poetic instrument on board because it doesn't just measure something physical like a rock or a temperature. It measures energy. To be more precise, it detects oscillations in the plasma of the charged particles that flow throughout space. Plasma is everywhere in the universe. It makes up stars. It flows as solar wind from the sun. It even surrounds planets. And when it moves, it creates waves, much like how wind creates ripples on a lake. Voyager's PWS can sense those ripples, even though there's no water, no air, just plasma waves rolling through space. But here's the key. These plasma waves vibrate at specific frequencies, and frequencies can be turned into sound. The process is known as sonification. It's not new, but it's gaining new meaning as we explore space. In simple terms, sonification is the conversion of data into audio. Scientists do this all the time. Stock market fluctuations can be turned into melodies. Earthquakes can be transformed into deep rumbles. Even the firing of neurons in a brain can become sound. The point is not to create music, but to reveal patterns, shapes, and feelings through sound. With Voyager, the raw data recorded as voltage fluctuations across a range of frequencies is mapped into the audio spectrum. Sometimes it has to be sped up or shifted to be within the human hearing range, but the result is real. You're not hearing something artificial. You're hearing the shape of the data. Let's go deeper. Besides the plasma wave subsystem, Voyager also carries This instrument measures the strength and direction of magnetic fields. These fields are crucial in space because they guide the movement of plasma, trap radiation, and shape the space environments around planets and stars. And magnetic fields, like plasma, fluctuate. They bend and pulse and twist. When these changes are sonified, they become low, drifting tones, slow and heavy, like a distant storm rolling across the galaxy. Another tool, the cosmic ray subsystem, detects high-energy particles from distant galaxies. These particles are invisible to our eyes, but they strike the spacecraft constantly. Their intensity and rhythm can also be turned into sound, like random clicks and pops on an old radio. One more, the low-energy charged particle instrument. It measures particles trapped in magnetic fields, especially near planets. In sonified form, these create rapid pulses and bursts, like a Geiger counter ticking in deep space. Now imagine layering all of these together. The deep tones of magnetic fields, the eerie hums of plasma waves, the clicking static of cosmic rays. Together, they form a kind of space symphony, not composed, but emerging, a reflection of the environment Voyager is passing through. What is powerful about this? Isn't just the sound itself, it is what it tells us. For example, when Voyager passed through the termination shock, the point where the solar wind slows as it meets, interstellar space there was a noticeable change in plasma frequency. It shifted upward, became sharper, thinner. This told scientists that the density of particles had changed. The sun's influence was ending. Voyager was stepping into something new. Later, in 2012, Voyager 1 crossed the heliopause boundary between our solar bubble and true interstellar space. The plasma wave subsystem recorded a high-pitched signal, lasting for several minutes. It sounded like a whistle, stretched across time. That sound wasn't just noise, it was evidence. It told us, with no doubt, that Voyager had left the sun's reach. And here's the most poetic part. While we often think of data as cold and impersonal, when you hear it, truly hear it, it becomes something more. It becomes emotional. The deep rumble of a magnetic field isn't just a measurement, it's the voice of a planet. The rising whistle of plasma isn't just energy, it's a doorway between stars. The background hiss of radiation, that's the static of the universe, always present, always humming. Voyager doesn't know it's recording something beautiful, but it is, because we are the ones interpreting it. We give it meaning, we assign it emotion, and in doing so, we build a bridge between machine and music, between data and experience. This is what makes Voyager's instruments so powerful, not just their technical precision, but their poetic possibility. They remind us that even in a place where no sound exists, there is still rhythm, there is still pulse, there is still voice. All we need is a way to listen. Chapter 3. What does space actually sound like? We've talked about how Voyager collects data. We've talked about how that data can be turned into sound. But now it's time to ask the question that brought us here. What does space actually sound like? The answer, ... is unlike anything you've ever heard. Let's begin with a real example. In 2012, Voyager 1 crossed a boundary. Scientists had waited decades to find the heliopause. This is where the sun's influence finally ends, and true interstellar space begins. No one had ever been there. No other probe had survived that long, or traveled that far. What Voyager recorded wasn't a photograph. It wasn't even a signal in the traditional sense. It was a sound, a rising tone, thin, sharp, and oddly steady. It lasted over a minute. Some described it as a whistle. Others called it a scream. It was actually a burst of plasma waves vibrating at a higher frequency than usual. That's what confirmed it. Voyager had left the sun's neighborhood. When you listen to that sound, you hear more than data. You hear a transitional moment when our little spacecraft stepped into a realm untouched by human hands. But that was just one sound. There are many more. NASA has sonified several sets of Voyager data. Each one is unique. Each one tells a different story about a different place. One recording taken near Jupiter sounds like slow, echoing pulses, almost like sonar, or the deep, distant tolling of bells underwater. That was the plasma activity around the gas giant. Another, from Saturn's magnetosphere, crackles like an old radio, intermittent bursts of static, punctuated by sudden flashes of higher frequency. You can almost feel the electrical violence in the air, even though it's all happening millions of miles away. Some recordings are quiet, almost too quiet. A low background hum, steady and calm, like the silence between two thoughts. Others are chaotic random pops, rising and falling tones that feel like a language you almost understand. And maybe that's the most unsettling part, because space, when sonified, doesn't feel like emptiness. It feels alive. There is motion, tension, change. You begin to realize that the vacuum ISNT, really silent T, is just speaking in frequencies we weren't built to hear. Until now. Let's pause for a moment and ask, how does this affect us? Why do these strange, unearthly sounds have such an emotional impact? Part of it is the sheer scale. We know these recordings were made billions of miles away. We know the signals traveled across time and space just to reach us. There's something profound about hearing a sound that began where no human has ever stood. But there's another reason. Pattern. Our brains are wired to seek meaning in pattern. We hear rhythm, and we think message. We hear changes in tone, and we wonder intention. Even when the sound is purely natural plasma vibrating, magnetic fields pulsing, we can't help but ask, is something trying to speak to us? Of course, Voyager isn't a musical instrument. It's not a composer. It doesn't have a soul. But when we listen to the audio its instruments have created, we feel something close to communication. Not words, not even music, but presence, a reminder that the universe is not still, that it moves, that it breathes, and that if we slow down and really listen, we might catch a glimpse of something deeper. Here's another curious thing. Many people describe these recordings as emotional. Some say they feel peaceful. Others feel fear. Some feel awe. A few even report a strange kind of nostalgia, like hearing a memory that doesn't belong to them. How is that possible? Maybe it's because the sound of space is unlike anything we expect. It's not loud, it's not busy, it's not dramatic. It's subtle, foreign, slow. And in that slowness, in that distance, our minds start to open. We stop thinking in human terms. We stop expecting answers. We just listen. And in listening, we become part of something bigger. You might wonder, can we truly call this music? Technically, no. Music usually involves rhythm, harmony, intention. Voyager's sounds have none of that. They are natural, random, mechanical. But maybe that's what makes them special, because they weren't made for us. And yet, we find meaning in them anyway. That meaning is not scientific. It's emotional. It's the feeling of reaching out into the dark and hearing something echo back. That's what Voyager has given us. Not just data, not just proof, but the first whispers from beyond the edge of our world. And even though those whispers weren't meant to be music, when we hear them, they become a kind of song. A song made of waves and dust, of silence and distance, of time. And just like Voyager, that song is still moving, drifting through space, farther and farther away, playing in a place where no one is listening, except us. Chapter 4. Lofi in the Void. When art meets cosmos, imagine yourself in a quiet room, late at night. A soft beat plays in the background, slow, repetitive, calming. It doesn't demand attention, it just exists, gently filling the space around you. That's the feeling of lofi music. Now, imagine blending that with the sounds Voyager has captured. Two worlds, seemingly apart, things in music, data and emotion suddenly begin to touch. Lofi, short for low fidelity, is a music genre that embraces imperfection. It's filled with soft static, ambient noise, and looped melodies. Many tracks sample nature sounds, vinyl crackles, or distant voices. The goal isn't to impress, it's to comfort, to create a space for thinking, for drifting, for being still. And isn't that exactly what Voyager's journey represents? Stillness, drifting, thought. So what happens when we layer Voyager's sonified, plasma echoes, magnetic rumbles beneath lofi rhythms? Something new is born, a soundscape that feels otherworldly, yet strangely familiar. Let's break it down. The sonified data from Voyager's haunting tones and sharp bursts are unpredictable. They don't follow musical rules, but they're full of texture, full of character. A plasma wave might sound like a slow, sweeping synth. A magnetic fluctuation could become a subtle bass line. Radiation clicks might act as offbeat percussive accents. Instead of being random, these elements become part of the rhythm. They give lofi a new edge, not just as background music, but as a reflection of space itself. It's no longer a song about feeling distant. It is distance, and yet it's warm. It invites you in. Why does this work so well? Because both Voyager and lofi appeal to the same emotional space. They speak to quiet minds. They live in the background of thought. They don't push. They float. This blend of science and sound isn't just an artistic experiment. It's a way of connecting with space in a new language emotionally, not just intellectually. You don't have to understand solar wind to feel the slow build of a sonified wave layered over a mellow beat. You don't need to study magnetic fields to sense the gravity in a deep, distant hum paired with a soft piano loop. What you experience instead is presence. The presence of space, not just as a cold vacuum, but as something textured, alive, whispering. Some artists and researchers have already explored this idea. NASA itself has released sonified space data as ambient audio tracks. Independent creators have mixed those recordings with music. The results are mesmerizing. Play one while you're working or studying. You'll feel it's something between focus and wonder. It's not just productivity music, It's a bridge to the cosmos, and the most beautiful part, it's real. Every sound you hear, every fluctuation, every pulse was born in space, captured by a machine now farther from Earth than any other human object. A machine running on the last bits of power, a machine we'll never see again. Yet through sound, it still reaches us, still speaks to us. There's a strange comfort in that. In a world overwhelmed by noise, Voyager gives us silence turned into signal. In a culture obsessed with speed, it reminds us that drifting slowly is still moving forward. And in music built from distant data, we find something rare. Peace that didn't come from Earth. It came from beyond it. Of course, not everyone will hear it the same way. Some will find it eerie, others beautiful. Some will use it as background noise, others as a meditation. But all of them will feel something. And maybe that's what Voyager's journey has always been about, not just sending messages to the stars, but bringing something back for us. Something simple, something pure. Not answers, just echoes. And in turning those echoes into music, we don't just listen to space, we sing with it. For just a moment, across all that distance, we are no longer separate. We are part of the song. Chapter 5, a song that never ends, far beyond the orbits of Neptune and Pluto. Voyager drifts through the interstellar void. No more planetary flybys, no more gravitational boosts, just silence. And yet, it's still singing, not in words, not in any language we speak, but in data, in pulses, in the quiet hum of its fading power supply. And maybe that's enough. There's something hauntingly beautiful about that image. A small spacecraft, launched decades ago, now floating beyond the light of our sun, sending back its last whispers, not for fame, not for discovery, but simply because it can. The energy powering Voyager is running low. Systems are shutting down, one by one. Instruments are being turned off to preserve what little remains. Eventually, even the main transmitter will go silent, and when that happens, we'll lose contact forever. But Voyager itself will continue. It will keep traveling, long after we stop listening. In the cold emptiness between stars, it'll move forward alone, silent, undisturbed. No course correction, no signal home, just quiet momentum through the black. How long will it last? 1 billion years, maybe more. Long after Earth is gone, long after the sun burns out, long after humans, as we know them, our only memories, Voyager will still be there, carrying its message, carrying us. That message is carved onto a golden record, a phonograph disc made of copper coated in gold, a time capsule of sound, greetings in 55 languages, music from around the world, the laughter of a baby, the sound of a heartbeat. Carl Sagan called it a bottle cast into the cosmic ocean, not because anyone expected it to be found, but because of what it meant to send it. A quiet declaration. We were here. We listened. We wondered. We dreamed. If Voyager is ever found by aliens, by some future version of ourselves, or by no one at all, it won't matter. What matters is that we sent it. That, in the vast, uncaring universe, a small species on a pale blue dot decided to reach out with music, language, and hope. And that's what makes Voyager more than a machine. It's a story about time, about distance, about loneliness and connection. A story that doesn't end when the power runs out, because Voyager's true signal isn't radio. It's meaning, it's memory, it's movement. When you listen to the sonified data from Voyager, or hear it mixed into ambient music, you're not just hearing sound, you're touching something that crossed the solar system, something ancient, something brave. It's like hearing the heartbeat of a ghost, not scary, but sacred. There's a kind of comfort in knowing Voyager is still out there, like a candle lit in the dark, a reminder that even when no one is watching, the journey continues. Even when no one responds, the message matters. And in that way, Voyager's music hits, real music hits, not something you can record. It's something you feel, a rhythm, not in beats per minute, but in miles per hour. In lighters, in time stretched so far, it becomes myth. The next time you listen to ambient music that sounds like meditative, full of texture, remember, some of it is space. Some of it began as numbers on a machine 15 billion miles away. Some of it is Voyager, singing, not to be heard, but to exist. And as long as it moves forward, the song continues. Long after our devices turn off, long after this video ends, you're not alone in wondering about space. Out there, something old and quiet is still traveling, still echoing, and if you listen closely, you might just hear it hum. If this video made you feel something, curiosity, wonder, even just consider subscribing. I share stories like this for those who think a little deeper at night. Leave a comment. What sound do you imagine Voyager is hearing right now? And if you'd like more space stories told in silence and shadow, I'll be here.